Yeah, this class will be probably 10 or 11. So this is your Introduction to Abnormal Psychology, Psych 239. The course numbers here, the 100 level courses are typically not university transfer. The 200 level courses are. 201A, 202A is generally the progression to get to 239, but you don't need both of those. I think there's a prerequisite for just one of them. My name's Dana Layton, for those of you who don't know me. 3 of you do already. You've already been in my classes. 4? No, you haven't been in my class before. Okay. And so if you get particularly anxious after we talk about the requirements for the course, go talk to one of the people who's been in my course before, and maybe they can talk you down a little bit. It's not actually all that intense of a course, so that's the good news. So what I generally like to do is to find out a little bit about who you are, and that's what I was talking about, these index cards. That's kind of how I find out a little bit about you. So here's some information that I would like to get about you. You're welcome. Cheers. Your name, obviously. That's a good way for me to know how to refer to you. If you have a nickname or a preferred name, let me know that. Thanks. And what program you're taking here. That is, are you a university transfer, associate's degree? Maybe you're taking a substance abuse certificate, which this is a requirement for that certificate, I think. Or maybe you're in a dental or nursing program or whatever. This would be a good course to take for nursing, by the way. I've had more than a few students who've taken abnormal psych and have gone into psychiatric nursing afterwards. What you do in your spare time? Do you have any hobbies or pastimes? And I'd like to know why you're taking this course. For some of you, it may be a required course. For some of you, you're filling a social science requirement or a general education requirement. For some of you, it might be that you're just curious. And some of you might be interested in maybe even being psychologists. While you're doing that, I'll tell you a little bit about who I am. As I said, I'm Dana Layton. I've been teaching here at PCC. This is my second year. I came here last year from a community college in South Carolina, small rural college, and I had been teaching there for 2 years. And before that, in 2004, I received my master's degree at the University of British Columbia. When I was there, I was studying social psychology, which has mostly to do with the interaction, the individual's response to interactions with self, others, and groups. So it's a little different than abnormal. But it has some crossovers. Some of what we'll be talking about in here have to do with social interactions and how social interactions affect mental illness. And before that, in 2001, I received my bachelor's degree in psychology at a very small college in a place that the New York Times called one of the most remote places in the country, a little town called Walla Walla, Washington, about 4 hours east of here. And it's basically 4 or 5 hours from civilization in pretty much any direction. Seattle's 4.5 hours, Boise's like 5, Portland's like 4. Spokane is 3 hours, but as I'm fond of saying, whether Spokane is civilization or not is questionable. Are you from Spokane?
No.
Oh, okay, good. Oh, you have? Okay. Yeah, it's a really wonderful college, Whitman College. It's full of really bright students. So one of the nice things is in class you're challenged not only by the instructor, but your fellow students are on the ball enough to, to propose really interesting, complex ideas. And it's a very supportive and nurturing environment, and the faculty are very attentive. It's a small college with a very small student-to-faculty ratio. So it wouldn't be uncommon, for example, to have a class size like this there, which is uncommon at a college like this. So there's 7 of us in the room right now, 7 students in the room right now. We'll see if we get another couple who wander in the next few minutes. What else? Before Whitman, I did my transfer work at community college in California. I graduated with an associate's from Sierra College, which is in the Sacramento area, and I went to about 3 different community colleges in the Sacramento area too. And so I'm familiar with the community college and the pressures that community college students have with trying to balance work and school and maybe home obligations, family obligations. So, what else? So those of you who are good at math maybe are figuring out, let's see, bachelor's degree in 2001, that would have been 6 years ago, and he certainly doesn't look like, let's say, 22 plus 6, 28 years old, and that's true. I actually started at the community college when I was 30. This is my second career. My first career was software development. I did computer programming and systems design for businesses to run their order entry, order processing, inventory, accounting systems. So that for me, it got boring after about 15 years, and I decided that people are probably more interesting than computers. So here I am, studying people. What else to tell you? What else to tell you? Well, I'll tell you that I have personal experience with mental illness. I have family members who have suffered from mental illness, and one who actually committed suicide last March as a result of his mental illness. So it suddenly took on more than sort of an academic interest to me at that point. It suddenly became very personal. And I didn't really understand just the idea that that mental illness is a chronic disease. It's almost like cancer or any other sort of chronic disease that has an often fatal consequence. So it's serious stuff we're studying, but hopefully we'll make it somewhat fun. Some of the abnormal behaviors that we're going to study are actually fairly amusing. And so I don't want us to sort of take it too seriously in the aspect that we lose sight of that it is actually interesting and sometimes funny, although people do suffer as a result of mental illness too. So we'll kind of look at both sides. One of the focuses of this course will be getting a good perspective of the personal dimension of these disorders. we'll be studying the symptoms, we'll be studying the etiology, where these disorders come from. We'll be studying the treatments. We'll be trying to get an academic understanding of how these things work. But also I've structured the course so that you get a fair amount of personal, that people sort of testify personally to what it's like to have these disorders and what it's like to be in a body that has these disorders. That's a bit of a dualistic way to put it, but it oftentimes feels that way to people who have mental illness, that they're at odds with their mind. They have their rational mind and then the illness, right? I'm not going to ask you that question yet. Okay, so let's talk about the course and how it's going to run. So I'll give you the syllabus. Okay, cheers. So here's how I structure the syllabus. The first part has, yep. Oh, whoops. No, you can't. The first part has basically what's in the catalog about this course, the recommended and prerequisites. Then I have the required textbooks. There's two, the Sue and Sue book and then the Jameson book. There's an optional study guide for the Sue and Sue book. Then I have how to contact me. You can physically find me in the social science building. It's the, let's see, 2 buildings over from this one, if you go straight down that way. And it's 215, so it's on the 2nd floor. It's the social science division office. Talk to the receptionist and she'll tell you how to get there. I have my office hours listed there. I placed some office hours after this class at 1:30. I'll probably want to get some lunch between 1 and 1:30, but if you want to meet with me after class, I'm happy to do that. My email address, web page information, and chat client information. If you use like the instant messaging programs and you see me online, feel free to get in touch with me there. I say the best time to get in touch with me is during office hours, but I'm open to making an appointment with you at some time outside of that. And I actually give you a link to look at my calendar and see when I have time available. Second page has an overview of the course. I'll let you read that at your leisure. I do give you a warning that this course has a fairly heavy reading load. So I recommend that you'll set aside somewhere between probably 8 and 12 hours a week for the reading for this course. Depending on how fast you read and depending on your particular learning style, that may be more or less than that. So, some course goals: learning how psychologists study abnormal behavior. Talking about the diagnostic criteria we use for determining if someone has a disorder, reviewing the research on etiology, causes, but also to, I say, more completely appreciate the complexity of experiences had by people with psychological disorders. And so we'll be doing that through an autobiography, a memoir of living with a disorder, the Jameson memoir. And also, I've got a bunch of video clips that'll help you get an appreciation of that. We'll be learning a little bit about local resources. And I say last but not least, to have some fun while we do this. How we're going to accomplish those goals is on page 3. The readings, that's straightforward. The project. Okay. This class, I have integrated with this class what's called a service learning curriculum component. What is service learning? Service learning is an opportunity for you to engage with the subject matter in the course in such a way that it actually reaches out beyond the classroom into the community. And so we'll be running a service learning project which will basically involve an awareness and education event about a psychological disorder. We'll sort of talk about what we want to do a little bit later in more detail. The one that I have picked out that I would recommend for you, but we can choose something different as a class, is eating disorders. And what I would recommend, the easiest way to do this project is to run a information awareness and screening program here on campus to actually work with your fellow students about educating them about eating disorders, giving them an opportunity to take a self-assessment and see whether they're at risk for an eating disorder and stuff like that. There's a couple of other ways we can do this. One other idea that I have is that we can do it in the context of going out more into the community. So, for example, going out to a high school and doing it at the high school level, because eating disorders start quite early, especially for women, but also for men. It's a problem. And so we did this in my section in the fall. We ran a National Depression Screening Day event here where we educated people about depression. We gave them an opportunity to take a self-assessment for various mood disorders and anxiety disorders. And one of the things that came out of that was, out of the 50 or so people that the counselors saw as part of the screening, about a third had attempted suicide once in their life. Usually, most of them said when they were about 16. So high school is a real fragile time for people with disorders. So it may be a worthwhile thing to think about, but we'll talk more about that project later. I'm going over page 3 on the syllabus. Assignments. As part of the service learning project, you'll be writing a self-reflective kind of journal. Basically, just your experiences with being part of the project and reflecting on the disorders and how that affects you and how what you've learned from the process of working with other people and that kind of thing. We have very long classes, 4-hour classes. These are exhausting for me, and I can imagine they're also exhausting for you. So I take relatively frequent breaks in this class. I try to break at least once an hour for about 10 minutes. Sometimes I have to go a little longer. Sometimes I can go a little shorter. And I think I will take a little bit longer break at around 11 or a little bit after to give you a chance to get a bite to eat, because I imagine if you've had breakfast this morning, it was quite early, so like I did at 7 o'clock. So. But as I say, also, I break it up with the use of multimedia and stuff like that, so it's not just me yakking at you. We're going to have, hopefully, quite active discussions about what we're learning here. Grading and assignments. Okay, so here's how I break out the final grade in this course in terms of the different components. Exams are 60%, writing is 15%. The project that you're engaging in will be worth 20%, and class participation is a mere 5%. The reason that class participation is so low, I typically make it 10 to 15%, but partly the participation is folded into the project score, the service learning project. There will be 2 exams, a midterm exam and a final exam. Neither of them is cumulative, so they only cover the material that you're learning either from the beginning of the course or since the midterm, respectively. So each one is worth 30%. That's a significant piece of your grade, so it'll be worthwhile doing well on those. I typically use a combination of multiple choice, fill in the blank, and short answer essay questions on the exams. I always give you a study guide prior to the exam, which will list the parts of the chapters that I'm taking questions from. And that'll help guide your studying in the week prior to the exam. I release that usually about a week before the exam. Absences from the exam. Please let me know if you'd like to take an exam early. If you know you're going to be absent on an exam day, just let me know, and I can arrange to have you take it maybe with another class if I'm taking exams with another class that week, or just privately with me or in the division office, so that's not a problem. If for some reason you can't let me know that you were absent and you have an emergency and you can't be there, you can make up the exams, but I'll ask you to do that before the next scheduled class period. Okay. Writing. There will be one short response paper. It'll be probably 2 to 4 pages generally. Relatively short, and it'll probably be a reflection on the memoir that we're reading, An Unquiet Mind, by K. Redfield Jamison. Has anybody read that already by any chance? Okay, so you're a step ahead of the game. Okay, well, I'm sure you'll enjoy rereading it. I've reread it a couple times, and I always find something new in it when I reread it. So, how'd you find it when you read it? Did you find it engaging at all? Good. Okay. My students last term responded real well to it. It occurred to me that if we're going to do an eating disorders project, that I should have picked a memoir of someone with eating disorders, but it's too late now. Late papers will be accepted, but there's a significant penalty, 50%, so I would advise getting them in on time. I'm happy to give you an extension on the due date if you know in advance that you're, for some reason, not going to be able to get it done. You might have 3 or 4 papers scheduled that week. Just let me know ahead of time, and I'll help you out with an extension. Plagiarism. Do not go to the internet to find a paper about K. Redfield Jamison's An Unquiet Mind. First of all, the assignment that I'm going to give you for the paper is probably one that is not easily obtainable on the internet, but if you feel tempted to do that, be advised that I have had students fail this course as a result of plagiarism, so don't do it. Don't cheat on exams. Don't, straight and narrow. I don't have too much tolerance for that. So then I talk a little bit more in depth about the service learning project on page 4, page 5. I talk about how I score that project. Basically, your journal accounts for 1/3 of the score on the project, so just completing and submitting the journal alone. I don't actually grade the journal. I can't grade your, subjective experience, right? So it really just is the process of completing it. So that's an easy 1/3 of the credit. The other 2/3 will be based on your evaluation of your performance and your evaluation of each other's performance. And I have a survey form that I give you about how you did on each part of the project and how everybody else did, and then I take all that data and come up with a grade. Class participation. This is a small class, so your presence and your attendance here is going to be crucial because your voice is going to be a big part of the experience of being in this class. I can't stand up here and talk at you for 4 hours, so you're going to be part of learning, but you're also going to be part of teaching each other. So please contribute to the learning community we have here. I don't keep track of like how many questions you ask or how many you answer and come up with some formula to figure out participation. It's really a subjective evaluation of your experience here. I say about attendance, please come every day that you can. If you have to miss a class, get notes from a classmate or catch up using I record the lectures and I make them available as a download podcast. So if you have to be absent, at least you can catch up with the lecture and the discussion that we have here. Being late, if you have to be late, please do so quietly. Try to be as be like a little tiny mouse. If you have to leave class early, please let me know before class starts. And here's why. Just like everybody else, I'm subject to my own neuroses and insecurities. And if I'm in the middle of talking about something and someone packs up their stuff and gets up and walks out, then that starts my little neurotic brain going, gee, I wonder what I said wrong. How could I be such an insensitive teacher? Why did I take on this job? Why do I think I should be doing this job? You know, teachers should be understanding and always be available for their students and never insult them. And what a loser I am, right? And then my lecture deteriorates, and then I go home and sulk for a couple of days. I exaggerate, obviously, but I do go through a little bit of that process. So please let me know if you do have to leave early, and I won't do that so much. Cell phones and technology, basically turn off your cell phones in class. I understand that some of you may need to have the ability to receive a call during class, and if that's the case, just let me know, and that's fine. If you want to use laptops, that's fine, but you limit it to classwork rather than something other than classwork. Questions? I'll let you read this at your leisure and ask me more about it as we go along. Let me give you one of these. Could you do me a favor on here? Put your name, what program you're taking, like if you're university transfer or substance abuse counseling or whatever, what you do in your spare time, like your hobbies or pastimes, and why you're taking this course. Yeah, thanks. Okay, so next up is the calendar for this course. And you're welcome. This is a listing of all of the assignments for the course, when the readings are due, papers, exams, stuff like that. You're welcome. We have 11 weeks together, including the final, so we're going to be moving right along on this stuff. Typically, you'll be reading 2 chapters per week. So you'll need to, sort of keep up on the reading and not fall behind, because if you fall behind 1 week, you're then reading, 4 weeks. Plus, you're typically going to be reading a fair amount of the Jameson book. So it would be hard to fall behind. I list the topics that we'll talk about in class that week, the reading assignments that are due for that class session. So for week 2, we're going to do some planning for the service learning project, but we're also going to be talking about contemporary views of abnormality and perspectives on abnormal behavior. And so you'll want to read Sue, Sue, and Sue chapters 1 and 2 before we meet next Friday. And in-class exercises is things that I schedule to be doing sort of in-class time. So we'll actually, there's a couple things I have in here, group work things that we'll be doing, but we'll be doing more than that. We start talking about the Jameson memoir in week 3. So in addition to the chapters 3 and 10 in Sue, Sue, and Sue, you'll also be reading the prologue in part 1 of Jameson. I think you'll find the reading for, when you read the Jameson book, you don't have to, read it intently for content. It's not like reading the textbook where you have to read that relatively intently to get the content. The Jameson book will be more of a, almost like a pleasure read. But I do want you to kind of just be aware of the themes. But we'll have a discussion on week 3. We'll discuss the prologue in part 1 in class and see if we can draw out some themes and similarities that you find. The 5th week has your midterm, which will include 5 chapters, 1 through 4, 8, and 10. And then the service learning project I've tentatively put in week 8. That is National Eating Disorders Awareness Week. So if we do the Eating Disorders project, that would be the logical week to do it in, but we don't have to do it that week either. The service learning journals will be due the week after that. There's a paper for the Unquiet Mind, which will be due just before the final. And then we have the final. Please be advised this calendar is subject to change. Things happen. I could say something else, but I'm on the podcast, so I won't say the swear word. Things happen, and I may need to adjust the calendar. If so, I'll notify you in class and by email that I've had to change the calendar. The smallest number of revisions I've ever had for one of my course calendars, I think, is 2. And the largest is 7. So they seem to be getting fewer as I teach more and more. Each term I teach, I seem to be getting a little better at figuring out the scheduling. So won't change too much. Yes, I have an answer. Mm-hmm. Good question. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, the exam itself will probably take you only about an hour to an hour and a half, and I don't have anything else scheduled for that class period. That gives me a little bit of flexibility in case I need to throw something in after the exam. Like, we may want to do some service learning project planning after the exam or something like that. But I try not to have you read material for lecture that is going to come after the exam. Those of you who have taken intro psych in memory, what's it called when later learning interferes with your memory for prior learning? Do you remember? What's that? It's a form of interference. Proactive interference, yeah. And so I try not to create a situation where I'm creating proactive interference. So that's why I try not to do any lecture after exams if I can avoid it. Okay.
So we have to have chapters 1 and 2 read by next week?
Yes, please. Yeah. This class is not easy. On the other hand, this class isn't really, really hard either. For one thing, those of you who have taken me in Intro Psych know that I talk about this. The idea that many people will come into an Intro Psych course especially thinking, oh, it's just all common sense. But then they find out, gee, I have to learn a real vocabulary and stuff like that. We're going to be learning another set of vocabulary, but your experience in Intro Psych will really help you out in terms of being able to understand the vocabulary that we're learning when we talk about psychological disorders and mental illness. So the psych department here has pretty high expectations. You're not just, we just don't want you to memorize material, but to actually do some critical thinking too. I have relatively high personal expectations of you and of myself, but as I said, I've been in your shoes before, and so I know that sometimes life gets in the way of learning, so I'm really quite flexible and understanding. And in that regard, you are lucky in some ways to be taking this course at a community college where you have a lot more access to the faculty than you would at a large university. So take advantage of that. I'm available to help you in this course. That's really my main job here. And so office hours, make appointments with me. You may want to form a study group before the exam, stuff like that. Let me talk about the textbook. The required textbook for this course is Sue, Sue, and Sue, Essentials of Understanding Abnormal Behavior. This is what's known as a brief version of the textbook. Sue, Sue, and Sue have a larger version called, just called Understanding Abnormal Behavior. And this is sort of a condensed version of that larger textbook. Does anybody have a copy here by any chance? Can you pull it out for me? Thanks. So when I reviewed the textbooks for this course, this stood out mostly because I think that the writing is actually quite good. It reads quite well. It has all of the essential information that you need to know about these disorders, but what it doesn't have that the thicker version of this book has are some tables and boxes with personal anecdotes and stuff like that. But I'm supplementing that with class discussion and lecture and videos. The one weakness this does have is it doesn't do a lot with DSM-4 criteria and diagnosis and diagnostic stuff. So I'm going to be supplementing that with photocopies for you. Each chapter is relatively short because it is an essentials book. So let's see how big, for example. Chapter 1 and 2 combined is about 60 pages. So hopefully that won't be too bad for 1 week's worth of reading. And each set of 2 chapters is right around that same amount. So I'd like your, as we go along, I'd like your feedback on the textbook too, how you find it in terms of reading, how you find it in terms of coverage of the material. I think it's quite good. Also, it's a lot less expensive. Typically, the book that I would use instead of this is a book by Altman's, and that book I think would cost you about $130. I think this one is $80 or $90 at the bookstore. So I think it's a lot more affordable. So that's why another reason that I chose it. You can get a study guide, which gives you practice tests, fill in the blank kinds of testing questions. I advise it. The reason that I do that is what we know from research on learning and memory is that the best memory performance gains come not from continually studying and restudying material, but rather studying and testing yourself. That process of finding out what you don't know through your self-testing actually results in learning gains that don't come from just continually studying. So I will recommend that you think about picking that up. Any questions on the text first? Supplemental reading. We're going to read, Jameson's An Unquiet Mind. I don't know why that picture went away. Oh yeah, I do. I made a change to the slide that I forgot. So An Unquiet Mind is a small trade paperback book. You should be able to find both of these books at the bookstore used, or you can get it new if you want to through the bookstore or through another source. And as I said, that's going to be a memoir of Kay Redfield Jamison. She is a psychiatrist and psychologist, and she developed bipolar disorder while she was, it fully developed while she was an undergraduate in college and in graduate school. And it's about her experience of living with bipolar disorder, but also living with the family of a bipolar disorder and her experience of social support in her social networks and how that affects her disorder. So it's really quite a good read. And you can read. I read through it pretty quickly, and I don't read very fast, so it should go easily for you. Service learning. As I said, the Service Learning Project is a way for you to be of service, having learned what you've learned about what we'll learn about eating disorders, and to provide screening, referrals, education, and what's really important in abnormal psych and in mental illness is reducing the stigma that's associated with mental illness. It's a real problem in our society. Having a psychological disorder is very stigmatizing. And it's partly because people don't really understand psychological disorders very well. Oftentimes they'll think of a psychological disorder or a mental illness as a weakness of will, something weak about the person if they're depressed or something. Why don't you just, in this culture it's like, why don't you just pull yourself up by your bootstraps, right? This very individualistic kind of culture. And so one of the things that this does is it brings the disorders out into the public and says, hey, look, this thing's not really as scary as you think it is, and it's it's something that's treatable. It's something that people live with every day. So it also, if we do the screening, will also be part of a national data collection effort looking at prevalence of eating disorders on college campuses nationwide. So not only are you serving the community here, you're serving also the greater knowledge base. And my students generally find that it's fun. You've got a lot of latitude with how you do it. You can make it as fun as you want, or you can make it as very serious and academic as you want. So, and as I said, you've got two ways. I'll use two ways of assessing your success and performance: the journals and then these peer evaluations. I'm trying to think of what the grades have been for the Service Learning Project. I've never had someone get less than, I think, a B grade on the Service Learning Project. Generally, people respond to this really well, and as a result, I can give them a good evaluation for it. Any questions on that service learning stuff? Yeah. Sure. Well, we haven't, I haven't quite settled on exactly what we're going to do, but basically, you will be planning, organizing, and running an event to raise awareness of these disorders. So there's an organization called Screening for Mental Health, and they provide a kit of materials that'll help you to actually plan, organize, and put on this event, which includes publicity materials. It includes educational materials like a DVD or videotape that you can play, information about how to run these events, and basically it's your project, and you can really do it any way you want and approach it any way you want. What do you want to know specifically? Yes. A little bit of both. I will recommend that you do it in the campus center because that's where there's more traffic of people. And also, I will recommend that you do it near the counseling center because we'll be coordinating with the counseling center and the counselors to, if we do the screening part, which is optional, but I think we should, if we do the screening part, the participants, people will walk up to the table and you'll say, would you like to take a screening for risk disorders, for eating disorders? And they go, yeah. And so they fill out a screening form. And if they score high enough, then the counselors will help them find a referral to a service agency that can help them get treatment for the eating disorder. What we also have done in the past, and what I recommend, is the best thing for you to do would be to go out to local merchants or maybe businesses that you know of and solicit prize donations and have a prize drawing. And that way it kind of gives someone a reason to come up to the table and sign up for the prize drawing. Oh, but while you're doing the prize drawing, do you want to fill out the screening form, right? And so last time we gave away we gave away 2 spa treatments at some hot springs, Bonneville. Does that sound right? Bonneville Hot Springs. We gave away 2 free massages. One of my students is a massage therapist, and he brought his massage chair and gave chair massages while people were hanging out. And so you can make it this real kind of, that's a really good thing to do. Make it a festive event. Don't make it like, oh God, do you have an eating disorder? That must be terrible. Draw people in using the excitement of the event, right? So, and you have a lot of latitude in how you do it. It's your project, it's not mine. So the success of the project depends on you and your energy and your creativity, really. So. Yep. Everybody will be participating. If this were a bigger class, I could break it up into 2 or 3 groups, and we could have 2 or 3 projects. But in a class size like this, we ran it last time with 7 or 8 people, so it shouldn't be a problem in this class. It's not really that much work, and it's more fun than it is work, really. I will be your liaison, partly, for working with the administration and getting the resources you need. Just let me know what you need. And I've got some ideas and suggestions. And I can actually show you some videotape of what the project looked like last term. I haven't edited it yet, but I can show you the unedited version. Other questions? Any other questions or concerns? Okay. I think you'll find it. My students in the past have really responded well to it. So, one of the things we did. This was in South Carolina when I ran the eating disorders event there. I'm a sort of a thrift store junkie, right? And so I was out at a thrift store and I saw this, one of these like professional kind of bathroom scales with the big dial on it that has your weight, right? And so I modified it where I took the numbers off the dial and I put things like fabulous and smart and gorgeous and stuff like that instead of numbers for weights, right? So it's a way to kind of change your, it's like, hey, come and check out your weight, right? And then they go like, no, and they're like, well, you can find out if you're fabulous. Yeah. So yeah, okay. So as I said, the journals are basically going to be reflective. It's not like a research paper. It's your experience, and that's what I want to read about, what your experience with this event was. I may give you specific questions to respond to, and you can do it pretty much any way you want. Do you want to do it handwritten? Do you want to do it on a computer? Do you want to make it a blog? If you know how to do blogs, or do it in like a mailing list, or do it as a public forum with everybody contributing all together. We can talk about different ways we want to handle that. So, but it's important that your writing be confidential and anonymous. So these get a little bit dicey when you start talking about confidentiality and anonymity. So here's some things that you will need for this class. You'll need 2 Scantrons for the midterm and the final. And the ones you need are like a half-page format. And it's 882E is the form number. And it has 50 questions on each side. There's another one that's like a half-page format, but it has 25 questions on each side, and that's the incorrect one. But even if you get to the midterm or the final and you don't have the right Scantron, there's plenty of time to run over to the bookstore and get one anyway. So, and then you need number 2 pencils for the Scantrons. And you might have a journal lying around that you can use, or maybe you want to pick one up. So that's really all you're going to need for the class, besides your brains and your creativity. Any questions so far? Yes, you'll be turning it into me. I will read it and return it to you. Yeah. Or shred it if you don't take it back. Okay, let's take a break now.